Hello again. Welcome to our Fresh from the Theater vlog. I just got back from seeing the new horror comedy, Ready or Not. And I know I'm a little late on doing this right after it just came out, but better late than never, and I wanted to do at least one Fresh from the Theater review this month, and I didn't know a lot about this movie before going in. I saw the trailer a few times popping up on TV and playing before certain YouTube videos, and looked like kind of a generic but maybe fun horror film. And it looked like there'd be some comedy, so I thought, why not? I'd go see it, and I really liked the Happy Death Day movies. Those were really good horror comedies. And I went to this film and it was a lot of fun. It was a pretty solid, suspenseful horror film, and the comedy part, there were some real laugh-out-loud moments. I enjoyed it a lot. It gave everything it promised. Like Jordan Peele's Us, it was just pretty much a non-stop thrill ride from when the action began till the very end. It's not a genre-changing film by any means, but it's a good summer horror film. Everybody who worked on it did a pretty good job. The direction is really solid. The directors, there were two here, Matt Betterill-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, or Gillette, not sure how to pronounce. And I'll admit, I'm not familiar with these guys' previous works, VHS, the anthology VHS horror film, Devil's Due and Southbound, but I like this a lot. They did a really good job here, and the writing, which was done by two guys named Guy Busick and R. Christopher Murphy. It was a pretty good script. There's a few parts in the beginning that are a little cliche and cringy, but once the action starts up, it just becomes a fun ride all the way to the end. And the plot, which was pretty much given away almost note for note in the trailer except for the very end, is Samara Weaving stars as Grace, this young woman who's marrying into this pretty rich family who are the owners of multiple board games. They are the Ladomas family. They own many board games, and they've been going for several decades, possibly 100 years, and she's married into this family that's pretty rich, pretty snobby. She gets the impression that the family doesn't really like her, and her husband, who, they really jump into them getting married, and the film did a good job of establishing the main characters. Grace, played by Samara Weaving, and Alex, played by Mark O'Brien. They did a good job of introducing us to them right away without much backstory, and really giving us an idea of how this couple works, just that they love each other and he doesn't care what his family thinks. And before that, we got this opening scene of two little kids, one of them being Alex and his brother, Daniel, running around their house, Daniel telling Alex to hide, and this guy begging Daniel to help him, but then Daniel giving him up, and some people, who we find out are the family, coming in and killing this guy running for his life. We see that it's tradition for whenever someone marries into the Ladomas family that they participate in a game at midnight of the wedding day, and the game is chosen by putting a blank card into this little box that I guess stamps it, and whatever game name comes out, that's the one they play. Sounds kind of silly, and the film does acknowledge that it's a crazy setup, and Grace, she's going along with it simply because she wants to win the love and respect of the family, and we hear that she grew up in a foster family, so she's really eager to get attached to a family. And like the Child's Play remake, this film did a good job of taking a silly concept, like the setup for what is about to happen could have gone pretty badly, could have been really stupid, but they did a good job of setting it up and having it be believable that she would go along with what she at first believes is just a simple game. The game being hide and seek. And her now father-in-law, Tony Ladomas, played by Henry Kizerny, who I thought I recognized, and I looked him up, and he was Kittredge in Mission Impossible, so you know this guy knows how to play a slimy cunt. He tells her the game is simple, she hides, and they will try to find her, and if she's not caught by dawn, then she wins. And then we find out the family, they're actually trying to capture and maim her or just hurt her enough that they can use her for a satanic ritual, because this tradition that they're doing was part of a deal that the great-grandfather of the Ladomas family started after making a deal with a guy who they only refer to as LaBelle. The deal being that every time a new person marries into the family, they have to do this choose the game thing, and if the game chosen is hide and seek, then the person has to be hunted down and used in a ritual and sacrificed. And the film never outright states that LaBelle is Satan, but near the end they start chanting "Hail Satan" a la Rosemary's Baby, although the Cassavetes, this family, is not. And from the beginning of the game, Grace at first just thinks it's kind of silly, just looks for a place to hide. But then she sees, yeah, the stakes are real, when a real dumb member of the family ends up shooting one of the maids. And Alex, although he's very well aware of the game and what they do, he doesn't want her to die, and this is one of my few cons with the film. He tells her that, yeah, he was aware, and he was hoping hide and seek would not be the game chosen, because it hasn't been chosen since he and Daniel were little kids. He makes this big, passionate, and I'll admit, it was very convincing how much he loves her, how much they love each other, and how much he doesn't want her to end up being sacrificed. But, like, she brings up, you knew this and you didn't tell me, and me, I'm thinking, she should not stay with him after this, but they do, and yes, I agree, the love between them is very convincing, but my con is, why did he even bother to bring her to the family, introduce her, and get married at the mansion? I mean, there's a line, I think, about how, like, he does believe in the deal, the pact, but at the same time, I think it would have been easier if they just stayed away. Like, he says he thinks she would have left him if he didn't introduce her to the family because she wanted the family, but at the same time, this feels like it would have been smarter just to stay the fuck away. That's just my thought, and they did explain it, just it seems like there could have been a simple "don't come back" solution to this. Anyway, the whole film is a bunch of elaborate chase sequences through the house, and there's many secret passages, secret doors, hallways embedded in the walls, so there's a lot of cool claustrophobic moments in this film. And the thing with Grace is she's pretty likable from the get-go. They make jokes about how she's marrying into a rich family for the money, but it just comes off as a couple giving each other shit. She's pretty easy to enjoy watching, and as the film goes on, you grow more and more attached to her, and you really want to see her get out, and you actually want to see her and Alex get out together. And as the film goes on and she has to fight off the family members as they come after her, she gets more and more badass and tough. Like, she starts out in the white wedding dress. It's completely clean, looks perfect. As the film goes on, she keeps falling into situations where it gets ripped and more dirty and bloody, and she just becomes more rugged and badass looking as the film goes on. And well, she does get hurt, and when she gets hurt, she doesn't just rub it off. Like, there's a scene where she gets shot through the hand, and this is, I think, my favorite scene in the movie. She gets shot through the hand, and she falls into a pit full of goats that they've sacrificed. So she has to crawl back up, and she can't use her bad hand, but the ladder, which is apparently very old, starts to break, so she is dangling from her good hand, and I noticed there's a nail sticking up. I'm like, oh, I know where this is going. So when she has no choice but to swing her bad hand up, the nail goes through like the hole from the fucking gun, and that was just like, ugh. But at the same time, I'm like, gnarly. And she screams, it hurts, but she pulls herself up. Like, she goes through the ringer in this film, but she keeps going, and I love this character, Grace. She started out, like, with Alex as being just introduced to us out of the blue, but she became a character I really liked and loved to watch. Like, she's kind of reminds me of Ash a little from the Evil Dead movies. Goes through a lot of pain, but and is a smart ass, but she really grows on you. You really grow to like her. And the supporting characters in the film, like, every actor in this film does a pretty good job. There's only two characters I kind of have an issue with. The dad character, Tony Ladomas. When the character is first introduced, he starts out as kind of this in control, has all this command, but as the film goes on and they struggle to get Grace, he starts becoming he becomes desperate and a real blubbering crybaby, just a real teary, whiny bitch. And it just seemed like a very big shift from where his character was for the first part of the film to where he became later. I just think they shifted the character really drastically, and the other character I kind of have a little issue with is Alex's sister, Charity Ladomas. This character is supposed to be the annoying character in the film. Like, she's really obnoxious, over the top, and we see that she does a lot of cocaine, so that explains her behavior. But even for an annoying character you're supposed to hate and you really want to see get it, they made her a little too whiny, screechy, spoiled rich girl type. They just went a little too over the top at times. But other than that, every character fit perfectly. The mom, Alex and Daniel and Charity's mom, Becky Ladomas, played by Andy McDowell, of all people. Sorry if I keep looking down. I just want to make sure I get the names right. But Andy McDowell, I've seen her in a bunch of stuff, and I think she's a great actress. I love her a lot. And she does a really good job here. In the opening, where things feel a little rushed, she stands out as being kind of the nurturing mother while also being a bit unsettling. Kind of reminds me of Gemma from Sons of Anarchy. And as the film goes on, even when they're hunting Grace, she still comes off as the nurturing and also strong mother who steps up when the dad becomes real useless and blubbering. And she has a really powerful scene with Alex where they realize he's trying to help Grace leave, so they incapacitate him, and her conversation with him feels very genuine, very parent to kid, and she says she doubts that she knows him better than she does. And It was the most dramatic scene in the movie, in my opinion. It was very well done. And the Daniel character, aside from Grace, Daniel was my, I guess, second favorite character in the film, simply for the fact that he is the most complicated character. He hates his family, he doesn't fully believe in everything, but he likes Grace, he doesn't want to see her get killed, and he goes back and forth between letting her get away when he has the opportunity to kill her, and also abiding by his father and family's traditions. I like this character a lot. He's complicated, but pretty easy to get into, and a running theme for a good part of the film is it's a little unclear if the pact with LaBelle, Satan, whatever, is real. And some members of the family, particularly the spouses who previously married in but didn't have to go through the hide-and-seek bullshit, they question whether or not it is real. And the spouses, Daniel's spouse, this, as they call it, gold-digging whore, played by Melanie Scrofano. She plays Emily. Out of everybody, she's the least developed or interesting character, but she still has her couple of memorable scenes. She has a good scene with Daniel, where they talk about how she had no problem giving her soul up because she wanted the riches. And we also see Charity's husband, a big, obnoxious, fat guy named Fitch. And while Charity is chalkboard scratchingly annoying, Fitch, he's a little obnoxious, but he's mostly just the dumb asshole who he's the most doubtful of whether or not the ritual stuff will work, because one of the big things at stake is if they do not sacrifice Grace, then apparently they're all going to die. So Fitch, apparently they've never failed to sacrifice when they had to. So Fitch and a few others are wondering, is this real, or were they all conned and they've just believed it for a long time? And everybody, per tradition of hunting the newlywed member of the family, is given an antique weapon from way back in the day. Fitch is given a crossbow, and there are a few scenes that were very well done to the point that they didn't feel pointless, where we see him looking up on his phone how to use a crossbow, and also a funny moment where he looks up, "Pact with devil, is it real or bullshit?" And there's also a scene where he tries to switch with his wife, and she, on more than one occasion, actually shoots the maids in the house. And yeah, she's the dumb one I mentioned earlier. And then she'll be like, "I didn't mean to! It was an accident! Why am I no good at this?" Just whine, whine, whine. And there's also this aunt character named Helena. And there's not much to her. She's just an old bat with short hair and heavy eye makeup. Very evil old lady looking character that you see in a lot of horror films. And she served her purpose. She's the most uptight of the rich snobby family. Her weapon of choice is a fucking almost battle axe. And she does put it to good use in one scene. And the last few things I'll mention before I move into the spoilers are, the pacing in this film is great. Even in the first 10 to 15 minutes, which are a little off because they're trying to rush and set up everything, the pacing is still pretty good. It doesn't feel like they're going too slow or too fast most of the time, and I like how the swearing in this film feels pretty natural. Just the profanity throughout, everybody... There's a lot of fucks and shits in this film, and With the exception of the dad when he's crying about how they're gonna fuck everything up. It all flowed very well. It all felt pretty real. And the one character I haven't mentioned that I really fucking loved is the family butler named Stevens, who this character, he gets beat up the most by Grace, and he's almost like a semi-functioning Terminator, how he keeps going after her. And despite her smashing boiling water in his face, hitting him in the car, she just keeps knocking him down, but he keeps getting up, almost like Michael Myers. I mean, he does eventually go down for good, but it's amazing just how much this guy kept getting up. It was fucking just very gunslinger from Westworld. It was very funny, very cool. And without further ado, let's get into the spoilers. If you don't want the ending ruined, then now's your time to stop. Alright. At the end, Daniel decides to let Grace go. The family has captured her, but as they're about to perform the ritual, and the dad's in the middle of going, "Hail Satan," mid-hail, he suddenly starts coughing and spitting up blood, and the rest of the family starts to, and it seems like Daniel has poisoned them, although he reveals to Grace it was not lethal. The only person who didn't get poisoned was Charity, and feeling like Daniel's betrayed them, she shoots him in the neck, and Grace is able to knock Charity down, but Daniel's too wounded to get up, and like I said, he was the most complex, and he grew on me, and I feel like he redeemed himself at the end by saving Grace. Anyway, back on track. His death was the only one in the film that upset me. I feel like I like this character enough. I would have been more than happy to see him live. And Becky confronts Grace, and she said earlier she liked her, but now she says she won't let her ruin her family, saying she doesn't deserve it. And Grace then takes the card-carrying box and literally smashes Andy McDowell's brains out of her skull. Never thought I'd see that. And Alex, who's broken free from his bonds after being incapacitated, comes in, and what happens next is honestly the thing about the film that rubs me the wrong way the most is Alex suddenly, even though they try to make an excuse of he does love his family and maybe seeing his mom dead, his brother dead as well, doesn't want anyone else to die. He suddenly, almost out of nowhere, turns on Grace and subdues her, and they quickly try to sacrifice her, and this is where they all start chanting, "Hail Satan!" Very Rosemary's Baby-ish. Once again, not as dark and epic, but still very in the same style of Rosemary's Baby, and I don't remember exactly what happened. I think Grace might have jerked at the right moment, or maybe Alex lost his nerve, but he ends up stabbing her in the shoulder, and she is able to get away just in time and wields the blade, and all of a sudden, we suddenly see the sun is up, and Helena screams that it's too late, and everybody screams thinking they're all gonna die, and nothing fucking happens. So for a moment, you're thinking, so it was all bullshit. They were all deluded and dumb. And Fitch goes, "I knew it!" And Helena, still believing, says she'll still kill Grace, and she takes a knife or her axe, and then out of nowhere, she just blows the fuck up. her whole body implodes and blood goes everywhere. It's very quick, very sudden. It's like Steve Coogan's death in Tropic Thunder. It just happens so fast, you're kind of wondering what just happened, and everybody around looks shocked, and then it dawns on them, it's real. And Fitch goes, you might have been right. And everybody starts exploding, and the only disappointing death was Charity, whose explosion happens off screen. I mean, like, come on! She was the most annoying fucking character. And, I mean, her kids are with her, and they blow up, so maybe they didn't want to show kids blowing up, but if you're gonna kill them anyway, you might as well show it. And once again, major props to modern horror films for once again regaining the balls to kill off kids. And aside from Charity and her kids' off-screen deaths, they were pretty annoying little shit, so no sympathy. We get the satisfying death of seeing Tony scream, I did everything, and then he blows up. And then Alex, suddenly regretting, tries to win back Grace, begging her for forgiveness, and Grace just, she's having none of that shit, being like, you selfish asshole, and I don't know why her forgiving him would have made a difference, but she takes off her ring and says, throwing it at him, I want a divorce. And then he blows up, and she looks at the chair of the family dining room, which they say is for LaBelle, and we see his spirit appear briefly, and even though it's been said a lot throughout the film, Grace's delivery of fuck is just perfect. And taking Becky's cigarette case, she goes out, and it's also nice to see movies still having smoking going on, especially considering this was apparently distributed by, no joke, this movie was distributed by Disney. It was made by Fox, but according to what I read, the distribution is being done by Disney, so surprised they were able to get away with showing a few puffs. But anyway, Grace comes out of the mansion as it's burning up in flames because fire was knocked around a little earlier, and she sits on the front steps, drenched in blood, her wedding dress all ripped up, and as she takes a few puffs, we hear police show up, and they're like, what happened? And she's like, in-laws. And it just ends there, because you might as well go out on the high note. And this is one of those cases where Harvey wonders what happened afterwards. Like, she just came out of this home where all of her new in-laws were blown up or savagely killed. And she's covered in their blood. I'm just thinking this may not end well for her after the police start asking questions. But anyway, that's, I'll try to wrap this up real fast. That's Ready or Not, and this movie was a just fucking joy to watch, a real fucking blast. If you like non-stop thrill ride horror films like Us or Hellfest, I think you'll like this, and if you like satanic ritual horror movies like Rosemary's Baby, I think you'll really get into this film. And also, Happy Death Day. If you were into the blending of horror and comedy, I think you'll just enjoy this film. It was very well made. There's a few writing, character flaws, but nothing major. I love this film. Samara Weaving, the rest of the cast, they all did wonderful jobs. And on the 10-star scale, I give this movie, just for the sheer enjoyment, I'd say a 7 or an 8. And on the 5-star scale, I think this merits maybe a 3.5 or a 4. Maybe I'll get a clearer opinion later on, but I like this a lot, and I totally recommend going to see it. Although if you're watching this part, you maybe already have, but regardless, this movie is definitely worth checking out, and it was fun to go out and see this, and should probably wrap this up now. Rain's really getting heavy. I will see you again soon, and do the next Fresh from the Theater vlog in hopefully a few weeks.